Hello, I'm Max Forsyth, MD and founder of Comms Search and Selection and host of the Comms Coffee Club podcast. This week on the pod, we have the fantastic Joanna Parsons joining us. She is the CEO and founder of the Curious Route and the Curious Tribe. If you're in internal communications and you're on LinkedIn, you're almost certainly familiar with Joanna's fantastic content, thoughts and quips on the IC profession. Tips, sites and years. She's now a LinkedIn influencer as well as a growing membership community, Curious Tribe. So really looking forward to this episode, and we get into the nitty gritty of Joanna's career, how she got into IC, what it's like being a LinkedIn influencer, and setting up the Curious Route and the Curious Tribe. Enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. And of course, please do follow myself and ComSearch on LinkedIn. And there'll also be links below, one to Joanna's website, the Curious Tribe, but also to ComSearch and Selection's website. So if you have any communications or investor relations recruitment needs in 2025, we would be delighted to chat and discuss how we can help. Enjoy the episode. Here we go. So, Joanna Parsons, welcome to the Comms Coffee Club podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And as we were just saying, I think it's one of those where we've known each other for a very, very long time and been connected on LinkedIn for ages. But this is actually the first time that we've had a full-on conversations. Very much looking forward to this and hearing about your story, your current business and your insights.
Wouldn't it be funny now if our first conversation we decided that we didn't get along? That would be hilarious.
That would be very funny. That would be funny. But thankfully, I'm not going to do a trigonometry and start getting into anything too contentious. So we should be okay.
I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, we'll be all right. So let's get straight into it. How did you get into comms?
Well, I talked to a lot of comms people who always wanted to work in comms, who studied comms in university and always wanted to do it. I'm not like that at all. I think I never even knew that you could have a career in communications. I actually studied sociology in university because I was just fundamentally nosy about people, I think, and about cultures and why are things the way they are and who decides social norms and cultural norms. So I studied sociology, and then I was one of those people that sort of fell into a comms role during my career. And when I discovered internal comms, I never even knew it was a thing. Just loved it, absolutely loved it. And I never looked back, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Very nice. Very good. And it is funny. Yeah. The amount of people I've had on the podcast, and actually the amount of people I meet, very, very few people grow up, one, knowing they want to get into communications, and two, actually knowing, as you say, actually knowing it's a thing and a function and a discipline. Yeah. It very rarely, just tends to be after university, maybe not quite sure what to do. And for a lot of people, end up working in a PR agency, for example, and then your career snowballs from there. Yeah. So what was your first job in comms?
You know what? When I was a child, I just knew I wanted to do something that was kind of helpful to people. And as I got older, got into my teenage years, that began to manifest as a real interest in social justice and equality and human rights. So I did my master's in international development so that I could go and work in NGOs and in humanitarian aid, which I did for about 6 years. And it was in that time when I was in the charity sector that I joined a comms team and did my first comms role, and that turned into my first internal comms role. And it was total accident, not at all planned, but it was one of those things where I just suddenly was in the right place at the right time. And I had all the right skills. I was always great at writing, and I could take something really boring and make it interesting. So it really was a very accidental career. I heard someone on a podcast once, or maybe it's a book, they used the term squiggly career. I've definitely had a squiggly career. I've never had a great master plan. I think I probably still don't, just kind of following what happens.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah. And some people can have incredibly successful careers out of that. And we'll get on to what you're up to nowadays shortly. But so you went from the NGO space, your first gig in comms, and then where did it take you? And how long did you spend in sort of formal internal communications roles pre you setting up Curious Route?
I was in-house in internal comms for, God, I've lost count, 12, 13 years maybe. So I worked in the charity sector. Then I went into a financial services company, which it was so funny because I always thought like I'm a fundamentally like unserious person, and I was really nervous about joining a financial services company because I thought there's going to be zero crack. I won't be able to have like humor in work, and it'll be a very stiff and formal. Everyone will be in suits. Now everybody was in suits, but that was the most fun place I've ever worked. It was absolutely amazing culture, and it gave me a real like dip the toe in the water to see that actually the communication challenges that companies face don't change that much from sector to sector. So I went from charity sector to financial services, then I went into policing, then I went into tech. And it's amazing how much things are the same rather than different. So I've had a very varied career. I think that's one of the reasons I get a little bit niggly when I see job specs where it might be like head of internal comms in a retail organization and they want someone who specifically worked in retail. Like you're really missing out on a breadth of candidates that could do that job that have probably never worked in retail before. Like I joined the Irish Police as their head of internal comms. I didn't know anything about policing, but I could learn it. What I could bring was all the skills, all the comm skills and expertise that they needed. And I smashed the hell out of that job. But if they wanted someone who was only in public sector, only in policing, I would have never got that gig.
Yeah, I do find that strange as well, particularly in internal communications, as you say. The discipline is, and the skills are broadly very similar from industry to industry. And sure, there might be some slight nuances in terms of the audience mix and how much of that is centrally office-based versus either out on the road, or I guess if you're in the police, kind of they're out on the beat, aren't they? Or they're out in the cars, and maybe your channel selection needs to vary a little bit and gets tweaked. But you're very right. There's not actually a huge amount of difference across industries. Yeah, so when internal comms roles particularly start getting quite regimented around having the industry experience, I do also question that myself.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because like a good communicator will walk into any organization and they will develop an understanding of the organizational strategy. They'll get really like curious and really interested in the audience, get a really deep understanding of what the audience needs and who they are. And then they'll begin to work out, okay, well, this is what we need to focus on. These are the channels. These are the messages. Any good communicator can walk into any organization and do that. So I really, like, if there's anybody listening to this who is going to be hiring, like, you don't need someone with experience in your sector, in my experience.
Yeah, and particularly if there's a particular driver around the world, whether it is slightly more change focused, or they're just looking particularly for someone to bring some fresh ideas and do things a bit differently. Yeah, absolutely look outside your industry.
Exactly. Don't mind me here with my like vat of Diet Coke.
That's absolutely fine. Well, no, and I was going to say, look, it's that herbal tea, but
no, it's a Diet Coke.
It's not
very healthy.
Love it. Fab, super. Then, star of the show and star of the podcast. Really, you decided to set up your own internal comms consultancy, the Curious Route. And may I say, from an outsider's perspective, you seem to have absolutely smashed it.
Thank you.
Well, no, certainly when I look on LinkedIn and your social engagement and all of the, kind of heads of internal comms and directors of internal comms that I am either connected with or I know, they're always singing your praises and raving about you. Quite often comms people, it could be quite hard to publicly get praise. So I think when other comms people are very happy to publicly praise you, you're definitely doing something right. So that's great. Tell us all about it. I guess why you set it up, and then kind of bring us up to speed with your journey, because you've been going a couple of years now, right?
Not quite a year and a half, nearly a year and a half. So I set up my own gig in July 2023. And it's funny because sometimes I meet people at conferences or whatever who might be thinking of doing something else. And they're like, oh, how long did it take you to develop your business plan and your strategy? And people think I had it all worked out. I had absolutely no idea. And I didn't really have a great plan actually to go out and do my own thing. If you'd asked me even 3-4 years ago, I would have said, oh, I could never do that. Like I'd be never good enough to do that. I'd never be confident enough to do that. I'd never take the risk. Like I liked having the comfort of a salary. But something I think happened to me during probably two things were the catalyst. One was turning 40. I turned 40 nearly 2 years ago. And it's just a natural time in your life, I think, to stop and reflect on, is this how I want to spend my life? Am I really happy with what I'm doing? You know, also, the other thing that sort of changed me, I'd say a lot, was COVID. Like for a lot of people, the pandemic and the lockdowns in Ireland were really harsh. And I got really burnt out and really tired. And you kind of just reflect a little bit about, again, like, how am I spending my time? And am I really happy? And I was reading something that Daniel Pink had done some work about, like regrets and what do old people say they look back. And I began to think about what are all the things that I might regret. Like if I was suddenly lucky to be 80 years old and I was looking back at my life. So I think that's where I started to think about, maybe I don't want to be an employee anymore. Like I have so many bajillion ideas and I'm quite creative. I felt for me, being an employee was always, I felt a little bit caged because you're working in the confines of an organization and you have to do what the organization wants and what your boss wants. And I'm a very stubborn redhead. I want to do what I want. So for me, the big driver of going out on my own was and still is about freedom. I want the freedom to do what I want. I also want the freedom from the constraints of being in the corporate world. So people often ask me, like, when are you going to grow an agency or when are you going to hire anybody? I'm not. I have no plans to hire anybody. I'm just me. What I like is that I don't have any investors. I don't have any employees. Like on Monday of this week, I worked for a few hours in the morning and then I just thought, I'm a bit tired. I just don't feel like working. So I went and sat on the couch for 3 hours and read a Stephen King novel and that was grand and I could do that. So for me, it's just about having the freedom to do what I want when I want.
Yes, no, and that's fantastic. And also, well done you from a planning and scheduling perspective as well. Because I think if anyone follows you on social media, they would definitely be thinking that you wouldn't be spending 3 hours reading a Stephen King novel.
Do you know what? A lot of people said to me, somebody very close to me said to me when I launched my business, they said, well, I hope you're going to get used to 18-hour days and I hope you'll get used to working on the weekend. And I remember thinking at the time, like, maybe I'm naive, but like, I have no interest in doing that. And I don't do that. I don't work weekends. I don't work evenings. Like, I have a little kid, she's 6. My weekend and my evenings are for spending with her. So I think it's what you make it. I think that's why I'm resisting the narrative of you must grow and you must scale and you must hire. And I don't want to do any of that. I don't need to make 10 million euros a year. I just want to be free and happy and do my own thing.
No, yeah, exactly. And I think unless someone gets incredibly lucky by themselves, the amount of time and effort it takes, whether it's a comms agency or me from a recruitment perspective, get to those sorts of revenue numbers and that profit without hiring, but also, let's be honest, without external investment. With that external investment comes, you lose some of that control, you give away some of your shares, and ultimately you end up having to spend every month at some point sat in a board meeting. And if you love the freedom, you don't want to do that. So I totally get you.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because people think that I had this grand plan and I had it all worked out of exactly what I wanted to do. And that's really couldn't be further from the truth. Like, it was quite a quick decision I made to launch my own business. I had started a new job and it wasn't working. It wasn't working for me. It wasn't working for them. I wasn't in the right headspace to do what they wanted. And it just didn't work. So I just made a very split decision of, do you know what, I'm going to try it. And people sometimes ask me, how did you manage the feeling of being scared of giving up a salary every month? It's quite scary. So it was my husband actually told me, why don't you just try it for 12 months? So if it doesn't work out, just get another job. There's loads of jobs, but try it for 12 months and see if you like it and then take it from there. So he was really the one pushing me, you're ready, just do it. So thank you to him.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, no, and I was exactly the same. I wasn't enjoying my new job. I was still in my probation period, was about to get past and go from a 1-week notice period to a 3-month notice period. And literally one day on the train home to Rugby from Euston, went on Company's House, had a look for com search and selection. No one had registered the company name. I bought it on the train home, and the rest is history. Hadn't told my wife. Well, I did tell my wife later. Which
She's only finding out now when she's listening to this.
yeah, and you can imagine we had Hugo was how old was Hugo? Nearly 2 at the time, and Kate was nearly pregnant as well with our second child. It was a bit of a risk, but yeah, probably similar to you. I also said to myself, okay, look, I'm going to make this work, and it will work by hook or by crook, and we'll make it work. And
it's almost a bit like having a child, isn't it? Like you can never wait for the right moment. There's never going to be a moment in your life where you have enough money, you have enough stability, you feel mentally ready. Like, just have to do it.
No, in those first few months, yeah, where you go from not having a salary to I didn't get an invoice out the door for a while. It was just living off savings for a bit. And, suddenly you go from, and from my perspective, working for other recruitment agencies where, sure, you have to do a bit of business development, but the phone still rings with some roles that get, sent in, etc. They're on lots of PSL lists. Then, suddenly you're starting from scratch, right? You have to really hustle. But I don't regret it at all.
It's funny, isn't it? That's the bit that, like marketing yourself was probably the most uncomfortable bit for me. And like I worked with an executive coach for a while when I started, and I was talking him through what I was thinking about doing, what I was thinking about focusing on. And he said something that really like changed my perspective on how I think about things. And he said, it sounds like people want to work with you because of you. It's not necessarily about like the packages that you're offering or the products that you're putting together. People are drawn to you because of what you're putting out. So you need to focus on marketing you rather than your products. And I was like super cringe about that for a while, but he was absolutely right. And I hear it all the time when people approach me. They're like, I'm not quite sure what help I need, or I don't really know what I want you to do. But like, I just love everything you're doing. You understand me. I resonate so much with all your content. You are absolutely the person to help me. Can we have a conversation? And that is my favorite type of client, because they're not coming with this predetermined list of what I should do, but rather, can we have a conversation? You can help me unpack this.
Yeah, it's great. And I understand as well. Yeah, particularly the self-promotion when you're first starting out. I think having an opinion as well and getting comfortable sharing that, I always think takes a bit of time. And now I don't think I ever post anything overly controversial, but I don't mind having a strong opinion line. And, some people love it. There are probably a few people that read it and think, oh, Max, maybe you shouldn't have such a strong opinion on something.
But I think that's very true for social media. I mean,
yes,
if you're posting bland, generic stuff, like people will just scroll on. I think you have to be willing to be disliked, and you have to be willing to not be it for everybody. Like I focus a lot on humor and I take the piss out of things. And for me, that's fundamentally part of my brand. It's part of who I am. But it means that the people that are attracted to that are completely the types of people that I want to work for. They want to do great work. They want to do high quality work. They want to solve meaty problems. They also want to have a laugh and enjoy themselves while they do it. So we're often a great fit. So they're almost, my content is kind of qualifying people for me, because anyone who's really stiff and formal and wants a very rigid corporate consultant, I'm not the right person for you. And they could tell that straight away.
Yes. No, nice. No, and that's great actually, because I think that one, that's good for you because you're working with people that want to work with you. Two, it's setting expectations, isn't it, as well as to you are what you see, and get me, and what I put online is me, and that's how we'll work together. You've done a really good job there. So speaking of which, do you want to talk us through, if you can, some of the projects you've worked on, some of the challenges you've been helping your clients to solve? That would be fab.
Yeah. So the big meaty piece of work that I'm focused on now and will put a lot of my attention and energy into next year is that I launched a membership community for internal communicators called the Curious Tribe. And it's nearly a year old now, and I feel like I've figured out now what it is that I'm doing, and people are getting enormous value from it. But I think this came from a couple of things. One is that when clients approach me and they need some help, yes, I could swoop in there and do this very one specific work and then swoop out. But I feel like they're sort of left to their own devices then, and they have to kind of muddle through alone again. People need more support than that. And I often felt as well in my own career when I was in-house, I joined so many membership communities over the years with different bodies or different groups. And I was always looking for this like great community experience where I could not just like log in and download some resources or log into a dead message board that no one's posted on for months. I wanted somewhere where there was a community of people who were just like me, who had the same struggles, who like understand the world of internal comms, but I could also like really learn and develop fast, and I could get like inspiration and information. So eventually I decided, you know what, if this is something I really wanted and needed, and it doesn't seem to exist, out of sheer stubbornness, I'm going to create it myself. So I'm now running this community. I have about 25 people in it at the moment from like all over the world. And that is what I'm going to double down on for 2025. I did a bit of measurement. I'm big on measurement. I did some measurement of how people are finding it and what the experience is like. And I used you're probably familiar with the Net Promoter Score, the NPS.
Yeah.
Which is like a score between minus 100 and plus 100. So if you get like minus 100, your product or service is not very good. It's scored on just one question. The question I used was, how likely are you to recommend the Curious Tribe to somebody else? If you get above 50, you're doing a really good job. If you get above 71, that's like the holy grail. So my score was 75. And once I saw that, I knew that people are getting enormous value from this. I've tapped into something that people need that maybe they didn't know they needed. So I'm going into hibernation now, kind of between now and Christmas. I'm going into course building mode. So I'm going to start building lots of how-to video courses and lectures and resources for my community members based on what they're telling me they need and want.
Great. And what do people, and what do people currently get? And obviously, I guess down the line is to come, a lot more detailed courses, etc. But kind of what do people get right now if they're interested in signing up?
Yeah, so it is a 12-month membership. So one of the things that people get is I run everything through this asynchronous digital platform. So it's not like a dead message board where you log on, and it's not like, do you ever join like a really crappy like LinkedIn private group or Facebook private group? They're always a bit terrible. Like the experience is good. So I invested in a tool that is built specifically for community memberships. So that has actually, my phone has been binging all morning this morning because there are loads of conversations happening. So that's where people go to access all the resources, view all the recordings of past events that I run, and to post conversations and ask for help. So like this morning, somebody was asking, how do I push back on IT who tell me that I have to update all the distribution lists and all the mailing lists? Someone else was saying, how do I manage my leaders when they're telling me what to do, but what they actually need is something different? How do I moderate internal blogs when people are leaving nasty comments? So there's this vibrant community of super generous people who are like, I've done that before. Here's a template I've used. I also run tons of live events. So 4 times a year, we do like a deep dive coaching session. Turn off all your notifications, get out of work, and we're going to spend 2 hours together on Zoom and like really dive into a reflection on the last 90 days and then a projection into the next 90 days to get really focused on what you want to achieve. And then I run a bunch of events, like lots of live events, like 3-4 a month, which are like discussions on internal comms topics or real life case studies from members. Like somebody brought in a new intranet and like absolutely nailed it and got everyone in the organization using it. So she came in and she's like, this is exactly what I did and this is how I did it and this is what you can. So it's all about learning and upskilling and focusing, but also really about connecting with other people, having a good time and having a laugh.
Yes, no, great. And also I suspect there's probably a lot of ideas, a lot of knowledge sharing, and a lot of very useful tips and tricks that, to be frank, if you didn't know how to do it at the moment, you would end up going out to one of the large internal comms agencies and pay a small fortune for someone to come in and brainstorm with you. And actually having a place where agencies have their place, of course they do, but quite often speaking to your peers who are currently doing the job or a very similar job in-house to you particularly can be extremely helpful and arguably the most beneficial way of being able to quickly find a solution to your problem.
I agree. And that's something I hear all the time. And it can be difficult for people to know, like, if you don't have a community like this, where do you ask that question? Like you can't, I love LinkedIn, right? But you can't go on LinkedIn and say, oh, I've got this really tricky stakeholder, or I think my strategy might be a bit crap. Could somebody look at it? Because your boss is on there, all your colleagues are on there. Like it's so public. So you need that like confidential space where you can totally ask what you need to ask, and that there's a group of people there who are like going to jump in and help you out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or another real big one, I guess, would be, if I think of anyone or a lot of internal comms people I know, one of the things they either struggle with, or even if they don't struggle with, they find it quite difficult and they find it quite uncomfortable, is having those slightly more challenging conversations, either with their boss or, with the CEO, if it comes to asking for a budget or asking for some money to do X, because in the past, the answer has just been no. So, how do you ask that in a way that changes that answer from a no to a yes?
And it can be very hard for, like, if you're the head of internal communications, you are kind of expected to know everything and be able to do everything. And everybody is looking at you for all the answers. Like a lot of the people in my community are head of internal comms. They really have no sounding board. And if you just need a sounding board, like, will you unpack this with me, or will you walk through this with me, or will you just listen to me and tell me, does this make sense? You don't really want to hire a consultant per hour or per day for that. Like, you might not have the budget. So that's why I really like people come into the community and I give them 12 months support. Like you don't just have me, you have that group of peers, as you said, who are all doing the same job and all have the same challenges as you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Or even
you can probably tell I'm super excited. This is the most fun and rewarding thing about the job since I started. Like, I think I've found that bit where I'm really helping people and people are getting a great experience and enormous value, but I'm also having a great time. Like, I love it.
Yes. No, great. Yeah. And you've really hit on something there. And yeah, it sounds fantastic. And I will keep an eye on it as well. And you've got all your courses. So we'll make sure I like and share your promo on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, thank you.
No, Connor, you're right. It's something that's, one, it's different, but it's offering genuine value, isn't it? So let's switch tracks slightly. You are now, if you can get comfortable with this, definitely a LinkedIn influencer. You're on, how many followers you got now? 30 something?
Coming up on
31,000 followers. You have, I'm assuming off the back of your LinkedIn content and following, it's the brand partnership with, God, the name of the brand's completely gone out of my head, which you now do stuff with too. So what's it like being a LinkedIn influencer and flying the flag for internal comms?
Well, it's a funny one. I mean, I remember the first time someone called me an influencer and I think I physically cringed, quite a reaction. But again, I think that was just me being uncomfortable with the idea that people were sort of looking at me in a way that I might look up to other people and go, oh, they're really great, they're really smart, whatever. So I was really just uncomfortable with the idea that I was that person now. It's like, I'm just some person sitting at home with their cats, typing things on my computer. I'm more comfortable with it now because I can see the messages that I get from people all around the world who say, I really feel seen by your content and you understand the struggles that I have. I feel less alone. I feel like somebody who understands what I'm going through day to day. Like, your content really helps me, or it really cheers me up, or I've just had a crap day and then I watched your TikTok and now I'm laughing. Or so if influencer means influencing people to have a more positive look on their job, or helping them to do their job a little bit better, or helping them to get through a bad day, then yeah, I'm quite comfortable with it now. Imagine that you could make money from just making content, writing stuff and filming videos. It's amazing. It's a whole new world. I'm just blown away by it.
Yeah, I think certainly in the professional sphere, yeah, I think it's definitely a much newer trend, isn't it? Usually with LinkedIn, certainly the Instagram influencers have been around for a while, right? But a lot of that was much more consumer facing, what's that program everybody watches, Love Island. Everyone comes out of there with all of their Instagram deals and their Boohoo deal, right? I think everybody had got quite used to that. The LinkedIn thing is definitely a much newer phenomenon. And it's really good to see that it's really that you've been able to do that and also get a brand partnership out of it as well.
It's a funny one because I started getting approached by brands who obviously noted not just the follower size I have on LinkedIn, but like the engagement that I get. I have a very, very engaged, amazing audience who, there's lots of conversations. I'm not just posting into the void. I get approached a lot by brands that want to use me to reach my audience. And most of them I say no, because like I have built my reputation on LinkedIn over many years. I think I've been posting on LinkedIn for about, 4 years. So I'm not going to take a little bit of money and promote a product that I don't love or that and actually it's not about whether I love it. It's like, is this actually useful to my audience? Is this going to help them with something? Is there any value? It's always the word value I go back to.
Yes.
So, but there are companies, for example, WorkVivo that I partnered with for a couple of webinars. I'm going to do more work with them next year. Like everything about what they are doing and what I'm doing is very aligned. Our values are very aligned. Their product became on my radar, not from them, but from people in my community who were just telling me about it. They're like, I just implemented WorkVivo in my workplace and everybody loves it. And even the really annoyed people who said they wouldn't use it, they love it. And the team were so good and the sales process was amazing. And that's what put them on my radar for me, was like hearing about them. So when they approached me about doing some sort of collaboration or some sort of partnership, I was very happy to have that conversation. After I had the conversation, it was like an easy yes. They are a joy to work with. I think what they're doing for internal comms is really good. So there was a good fit there. When that fit isn't there and I'm not comfortable with it, I just say no. I'd rather not take the fee.
No, I get it. Yeah, and I get it completely. And I hope the fee negotiation process was okay as well. It wasn't too stressful.
My husband is a lawyer, so I was in good hands.
There we go. Yeah, making sure it's all tied up and wrapped up nicely.
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, no, good. And you don't have to share any of the brand names, please don't. But have you got any funny types of brands or products that have approached you and you've just thought that is just absolutely ridiculous?
Sometimes I get approached by companies that make HR software who don't seem to understand that HR and internal comms are different things. Like, I'm not promoting that product. I would never use it. I don't think my audience would use it. That's not good. And then other random ones, like people that make, like, what you call them, like sippy cups for adults, like cups with a straw.
Oh, yeah.
Random product. If I send you this product, will you mention it in a YouTube video? And I'm like, no. Like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And there has to be that product audience fit for me to feel comfortable. Like, am I going to stake my reputation on talking about this product? But like, for most of them, it's just a no. And then if it's a maybe, then I always insist on, like, I want to have a full demo of your product. I don't want like some low-key account executive. Give me someone that can answer all of my tricky questions.
Yes.
Let me interrogate the hell out of this. And if by the end of that I'm comfortable with it, then we'll have a conversation about how this might work. But like, I wouldn't even consider doing anything without that.
Oh, yeah. No, I completely get it. And actually, I've been thinking about this myself as potentially looking for just share the Comms Coffee Club podcast and thinking what would be a real value to broad corporate communications community rather than the IC community, and probably something around comms measurement. There is absolutely no way that I would agree to have anything that I haven't been given either a full demo, someone senior to ask questions, and frankly, knowing whether it's any good or not. I think whatever industry you're in, right, there are so many SaaS providers, so many different softwares. So many of them say that they're all going to transform the function, they're going to transform the industry. They will say very much the same things. Some of them are very good. Some of them are okay. Some of them are pretty crap. It's being able to actually work out which ones are good. So, no.
And also, it's about getting comfortable as well about monetizing your content. So I'm quite happy to take on board a brand sponsorship where I can monetize that so I can keep delivering that free stuff for my audience, but I also have a revenue stream. But it has to be a fit. Like, I watch this guy on YouTube. I'm not going to mention him because I actually really like him, but the way that he does his ads is so weird. So his channel is all about like adventures that have ended in mystery or tragedy, like people going lost in the woods or whatever. This is what I do in the evenings, by the way. So he'll be telling this like really detailed, deep, dark story about this lady that went missing. And then he'll stop and he'll say, and now, on a brighter note, let me tell you about this chocolate bar. And he'll do this really weird, like 60-second ad for a completely unrelated doesn't fit. And then he'll go back into, and then they found her. And I'm like, what? So it's really jarring. So that's the kind of experience I want to avoid.
Yeah, no, I get it completely. Yeah, and podcasts are very similar for that as well. Yeah, the amount of people now who, you'll be hopping through a podcast and then suddenly the Shopify podcast ad springs up. Shopify, LinkedIn, weirdly, started appearing in my podcast, even though I pay a small fortune for LinkedIn Recruiter and LinkedIn job slots. I don't need any more LinkedIn products, thank you. But it's interesting that is also now a channel as well that brands are genuinely looking at from an advertising perspective, right? And a partnership perspective. Yeah, no, it's great. And it's great.
It makes so much more sense. Like, I can't count the amount of times I've bought, say, like a hair product or a skincare product because I've seen somebody use it and they like have frizzy hair or they've hair that's dry and hard to manage. And I'm like, I have frizzy hair that's hard to manage. And then they show me using this product and how it works. And especially if they say something like, well, I didn't like this bit, but overall I liked all of it. I feel like, okay, I would trust that more than the brand telling me it's brilliant. I don't follow brands. I don't want to hear from a company, but I would like to hear from a company who's using that product and like show me what it's like and tell me about it. I spent loads of money that way.
Yeah. And speaking of picking things up off people you like and respect, and or anyone in internal comms listening to this episode, for me, that can be, and everyone you work with, or people part of your community, or even people you regularly engage with on LinkedIn. What are the top three big comms challenges that people are reporting or people are saying to you at the moment that they are struggling with, or they're coming up against it?
So I reckon these are probably ones that have been around for a while. One is around proving the value of internal communication. It's a big pain point for people, and people are getting very frustrated. I mean, I think about internal communication is probably where marketing was, say, 15, 20 years ago, where a team of one was very common. It was seen as like a nice to have rather than a need to have. Didn't really have any links to the bottom line. It was kind of seen as fluffy and soft.
Yep.
I think we're on the trajectory to being where marketing is now, where like a fully staffed team with specialists is going to be more common, where you won't have to spend so much time proving the worth of your role or like begging for scraps. I think we're a while off it, but going in the right direction. So proving the value of your function and your role and your contribution is one thing. Linked to that is measurement. People struggle with this a lot. Now, I'm someone that, like, I went through 4 years of sociology where we spent 4 years learning how to do both quantitative and qualitative measurement and data analysis. Then I worked in an NGO where I spent a lot of time doing data collection and analysis. It's very comfortable for me, but people are struggling with it. I have been procrastinating for ages about putting together a communications workshop, a training course. It's on my radar. I'll be doing it soon because I feel like that's another space where I can add value and hopefully like demystify it and make it less complicated and less intimidating for people.
Yes.
And then the third thing that people are struggling with is, how would I call this? Like professional loneliness. I feel like internal comms is kind of a lonely job. Like, you might be the only person in your organization. If you're a team of one, which is super common, you might be the only person in your whole organization that works in internal comms. And nobody in that organization understands what you do, the complexity involved, the nuance involved, how difficult it is. But everyone at the same time is very quick to tell you what to do and to give you a list of demands. So a lot of people don't have anybody to turn to on a difficult day, or when they feel really stuck, or when they really don't have all the answers. So I hear that bit. That's the word I hear the most when I ask people, why are you interested in joining the Curious Tribe, or why did you just sign up? That bit about feel a bit lonely and I need some support and I really want that human connection. That seems to be a real thing for people I don't know if it's just in the wake of COVID. Maybe it was there before. Don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of COVID. I wish I had some actual stats and some evidence to back this up, but this is just off everybody I know. But I think this assumption is a fair one to make. Out of the broader communications function, I'd say, internal comms, generally speaking, tends to attract slightly more introverted personalities rather than external communications. Whenever someone maybe says that to me over a coffee, one of my questions is always, when was the last time you got out from behind your computer and went and spent a day with the front office? So whether you work in a bank, go and sitting on the trading floor if you can, or as you say, when you work for the Irish police, if you can spend a day out on the beat or go along to one of their training days or something, just spend a little bit more time with the people that you're actually communicating to in your audience. And I think quite often they find that once they do that, they get answers to a lot of the things they're struggling with, but also too, they feel slightly more part of the company. I think it's always a bit of it's a slight oxymoron, isn't it? When you think they can feel quite isolated, yet quite a lot of their job is working on culture and working with executives on building a culture and communicating that culture, yet they themselves can feel isolated from that.
I'm not sure that it's feeling isolated or it's not spending time with employees, but it's more about spending time with people that get it. You can go out, and any good communicator will be spending time with their audience, will be out and about, will be listening to people, but they don't know what it's like to do an internal communicator's job. I often feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit for the work that we do. Working in internal comms, when it's going right and you're having a great day, it's like the best job in the world. It's also a really, really difficult job. It can be really hard. It could totally wreck your head. So I think there's that bit about people just need to be seen and understood and know that I'm not the only person going through this, because everybody who's an internal communication team of one is going through the same thing. So it's kind of about helping those people to connect together and to feel less lonely together because they're not alone.
Yeah, true. It's the Curious Tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lovely. Top 3 tips or quick takeaways that internal comms people could take away from this to, kind of to implement quickly to either improve, kind of their results or their working week, day. What do you say?
Number 1, no surprise here. Be curious. Simply ask way more questions. Like if somebody comes to you and says, I need you to do X, I need you to make Y. Don't say, yeah, grand, I'll stick that on my list, I'll have it to you by Wednesday. Just ask them a bunch of questions about it. Try to find out what the objective is, what they're trying to achieve, what would success look like, why it matters to the business. Like try to assess the priority and if what they want to achieve is even like the right thing. Oh, that's tip 1. Just ask loads of questions all the time, forever. Number 2, maybe related. Don't stay in your lane. So I joined a financial services company many years ago and I met with this guy who was there about 40 years. He was the head of strategy. And I said, have you any tips? Like, I'm brand new to this company. What advice would you give me? And the advice he gave me was so off the cuff, but it stayed with me all these years. He said, make a nuisance of yourself. And I was like, And he said, if there's a meeting you need to be in, don't wait for an invitation. Go and ask to go in it. If there's somewhere you need to be, just go and be in it. Like, make a nuisance of yourself. So don't stay in your lane. Communicators need to get out of the communications team and really understand the broader business and what senior leaders care about. And that leads me on to probably tip number 3. Somebody asked me last year, how do I get my leaders to care more about clicks and open rates? And I thought, you don't, because they don't give a shit about that and they never will. And you shouldn't expect them to. So tip number 3 is to get a better understanding of what your leaders really care about. And you don't need to interview them for hours to find that out because it's all documented in your organizational strategy. So whatever the organization is trying to achieve, they are on the hook for that. So how can communication help them to deliver that? If you can move your mindset into that frame of thinking, you're onto a winner.
So true. And that last point, just absolutely nailed it. I talk about it a lot when people are preparing for job interviews, and actually the amount of people that don't do this, I still find it surprising. If a company's listed, you can find their annual report and look at their strategy section. And even if a company is not listed, there's normally something somewhere on their website that will have a nod to their business strategy. Or you can literally Google a company name, strategy, and then just put the year, whatever, and you'll find something. The amount of people that don't do that and then don't, in the interview, then think about what they can do from a comms perspective to support that. It's not just the interview, but it's also doing that in the job. And you're so right. That's what the C-suite wants from you. And as you say, that's what they're on the hook for. That's why they get paid the big bucks to deliver it. Also, two, if they don't deliver it, they get fired. So it is really your job to help them to achieve that. And yeah, you're so right. Yeah, no one cares about, kind of clicks and the open rates. That's not it. It's the result of what you're doing. And is that helping whoever the C-suite is achieve their objectives? That's what you're there to do. And
and sometimes for us, it's about adjusting our communication. It's going back to communications 101 of who is your audience. So if your audience is a senior leader or group of executives, you must tailor how you talk about your work. You're not talking to a comms person. You can't talk about channels and clicks and open rates and outputs. You need to talk about the business. You need to use their language and the way that they speak. So you need to get familiar with your audience. What do they care about? What motivates them? And do your comms magic on them. Like we do this in every bit of our job. And this seems to be the bit where we fall down and we forget that our senior leaders are a target audience for a specific message. And we need to focus on communicating that really well.
Get it. Fantastic. Yeah, and I think that's a perfect point to wrap up the conversation, I think. Thank you very much for that. First of all, where can people find you? LinkedIn, obviously.
People can find me on LinkedIn under Joanna Parsons. You find me on YouTube, also under Joanna Parsons. I'm on TikTok. Guess what? The name is Joanna Parsons. And my website is thecuriousroute.com.
Fabulous. Wonderful. Any upcoming speaking arrangements, any events you're appearing at that people can find you at?
I'll have a bunch of webinars next year with WorkVivo, so keep an eye out on my page for that. And I have one at the end of January with Blink, where we're going to be talking about like future trends of internal comms. So what we think is going to happen in 2025.
Fabulous. Love it. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Comms Coffee Club podcast, Joanna. Thank you. And really well done with everything you've done with the Curious Route, and the Curious Tribe sounds fantastic. And yeah, look forward to seeing that roll out, in full at some point next year with all the courses. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Pleasure. Cheers.